The year was 2005. Nintendo just had their annual E3 press conference where they showed off all the great and exciting new games soon to be released for the Nintendo GameCube, Game Boy Advance, and the recently released Nintendo DS. But most importantly, they unveiled an epic new trailer for one of the most anticipated games in the company's history, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. And I didn't get to see any of it, for I was still scumming about in the Stone Ages with slow, trashy, outdated AOL dial-up. I got to read all about the news, but I was lucky to be able to watch anything. It took like 10 minutes just to load a flash animation on Newgrounds. Streaming video was out of the question, and downloading took literal hours for a video so low res you can count the pixels. So was that it for me? I don't get to see the new trailers? I spent the last year scouring every Zelda fan site and shrine on the World Wide Web for any scrap of news regarding the new Zelda game, and now that such news exists, I'm being denied that sweet, sweet Twilight Princess footage? Well, luckily for me and those in my unfortunate position, we needed not fret. Why, you may ask? Well, it's simple. It's because we had the power. Nintendo power! Our old friends over at NintyP, in all of their benevolence, sought to grant broke young whippersnappers like myself a chance to partake in the festivities by including a DVD in their latest volume. Before I even read the latest issue, I rushed to the living room DVD player, stuck that disc in, and bore witness to over 30 trailers for all kinds of new games. But not before watching that Twilight Princess trailer over and over and over and over, more times than is probably sane. Somehow, decades have passed since then, but those memories will forever hold a special place in my heart. So today, I'm gonna reopen this gaming time capsule from 2005 and look back on all the contents inside. This time, I'm gonna start at the last page of the Game Boy Advance section and work my way backwards to the DS pages and finally, the GameCube, culminating with the star of the show, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Game Boy Advance! Working our way up from the very last trailer on the disc, we have Nightmare Before Christmas, The Pumpkin King. The most interesting part of this trailer is the fact that the footage was captured on the GameCube's Game Boy player. I got countless hours of use out of the Super Nintendo Super Game Boy, so I would have loved to have owned a GameCube player back in that generation, but alas, the MSRP was better off spent on a new game, so I never had the honor of owning one. Oh yeah, The Pumpkin King. Honestly, it looks extremely dull, and the trailer is underwhelming, so let's move on to the next thing. From the developer Sting, maker of some of the most bonkers games you'll ever play, comes the relatively tame Riviera, The Promised Land. Riviera has been on my list of games to play for a long time. Being an RPG with menu-driven, points-based exploration, as you can expect from Sting, there's really nothing else like it. And the trailer on this DVD didn't do the game any favors. There's hardly any gameplay, and all the Japanese dialogue is untranslated. I really can't tell anything about this game based on the trailer. Age of Goths? You mean the early 2000s? Luckily, the game was finally ported to Steam and modern consoles, so there's never been a better time to finally try this cult classic out. What even is Rebelstar Tactical Command? Oh, it's that game with the stupid aliens on the box art. Have you ever seen anything so generic that it loops back around to being memorable? Compare this to the game's actual artwork, which is so rich with character. Why would they do this? What were they thinking? The game itself looks pretty decent, like a mix between Advance Wars and Final Fantasy Tactics, though perhaps with a bit less flair. Apparently, Rebelstar is actually a series of computer games from the 80s, and this was their attempt at a little reboot. I did not know that before now, but after seeing the old box art, I am not surprised. Remember when we used to get like a zillion Mega Man games all the time? What even happened? Rhetorical question, I know what happened. But seeing this trailer from Mega Man 04 reminds me of how good fans of this series had it. I'm a big fan of the Mega Man X games, where the character of Zero was introduced, but man, the difficulty level in the Zero games is on a whole other level, which is why I never got into them. Since then, there's been a number of collections compiling the 4 Mega Man Zero games, the latest of which has options that attempt to soften that high difficulty with some much-needed quality of life improvements. Welcome to the Grand Tour! I have literally never heard anyone talk about Dragon Ball GT transformation before, but I guess I never hear anyone talk about Dragon Ball GT in general. This trailer is appropriately hype-worthy, as anything Dragon Ball related should be. With the eternal popularity of other GBA Dragon Ball games like Legacy of Goku, Boo's Fury, and Advanced Adventure, I imagine this game, at the very least, probably ain't bad. What the bloody goodness is Atomic Betty? Apparently it's a Canadian cartoon that was evidently popular enough in the 2000s to warrant a video game tie-in, but I guess I'm just an uncultured swine because I've never heard of it. Well, I mean, I have heard of it. Once, in 2005, from this DVD. As for the game itself, it looks like a typical licensed game from that era. What else can I even say? Moving on to Nintendo DS. Here we have Viewtiful Joe DS, which would eventually become known as Viewtiful Joe Double Trouble. This franchise, which was created by Hideki Kamiya and the people of Clover Studio, who made such games as Okami, started out with such a bang. Over the course of about 3 years, they pumped out quite a handful of these games, and even made an anime tie-in. They were all pretty well received, but I guess the audience just wasn't there, so Capcom left Viewtiful Joe behind, and now it's just a long-forgotten relic from a more civilized age. As for this game in particular, I've got to mention how well the art style of this series translates to the DS's graphical capabilities. The game looks seriously good, especially for a game released so early in the DS's lifespan. Back in 2005, I don't know if I've ever seen a crazier concept for a video game than Trauma Center Under the Knife. Seriously, a touchscreen surgery simulator? As you'll see from some of the other DS games I'll be looking at later, the very concept of dual-screen, touchscreen gameplay evokes so much innovation and creativity in game developers, even this early on in the handheld's life. Man, I miss it so much. Anyways, I know the game is about surgery, but could this trailer music be any more intense? Here's a fun description about Trauma Center straight from the pages of Nintendo Power. Ahem. You must activate the ultrasound to find the hidden growths. After you see one, you can select the scalpel, then make an incision to expose the tumor. You must then use the drain to remove the cytoplasm before cutting out the tumor. Wow, that is traumatic! Also, did you know that Trauma Center was created by the director of the Persona series and Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne?
Thank you, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne.
Someone get me a cold compress, cause I'll come down with the Puyo Pop Fever! Yeah, that's Puyo alright. My only experience with this series is from playing the arcade version at a game center in Yakuza 6. I was terrible at it. Anyways, one of my favorite video game franchises of all time is Ace Attorney, with the very first game, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, being my favorite in the series, and home to some of my favorite characters in all of fiction. So can you believe that this trailer just didn't do it for me? Like, it's a neat concept, sure, but nothing that spoke to my taste at the time. With games like Trace Memory and eventually Hotel Dusk and Touch Detective, there was no shortage of this subgenre of game coming to the DS. And I wasn't particularly interested in those games either. It wasn't until the third game, Trials and Tribulations, was about to release, that I finally gave in to all the memes and GIFs being posted all over the gaming forums, and I rented the game. From GameFly.
Remember me?
And I am so glad that I did. Now here we Ace Attorney fans are today, 11 games later, still hoping desperately for a 12th. One other thing, this trailer features a really cool rendition of the Ace Attorney 1 Cornered Pursuit theme that I've never heard anywhere else.
Listen to this! Hold it!
Being a fan of Pac-Man games like Pac-Man World 2 and the oft-overlooked Miss Pac-Man Maze Madness, I was naturally quite looking forward to the even more overlooked Pac-N-Roll. In this game, Pac-Man is a ball that you roll around levels on the top screen by using his body on the touchscreen as a trackball. It's not too dissimilar to Super Monkey Ball or Kuro Oompa. I explicitly remember buying this game at EB Games. I asked the guy at the register if he has Pac-N-Roll in stock, and he spent a good deal of time checking the computer and then the game shelves before coming back and asking if perhaps Whack-A-Mole has a subtitle. Who's the uncultured swine now? Pack and Roll is super underrated and overlooked. A hidden gem, a concealed jewel, if you will. Though I haven't played it in like 20 years, I once considered this one of my favorite DS games. On the other hand, what even is Pac Pix? Like, I get the concept of drawing the iconic Pac-Man shape and watching him come to life, but the game always looked incredibly bare bones to me. Though I do very much like the design of the ghosts. I mean, they sure look a lot better than some of the designs they've had over the years. I'm not into so-called realistic racing games, so I obviously never played Need for Speed Underground 2, and even if I was interested, I sure wouldn't have went for the DS version. I mean, the graphics are pretty decent, all things considered, but steering a car using the D-pad? That doesn't sound very enjoyable. Yeah, well, to be fair, I guess Mario Kart DS managed it just fine. Still, out of every version of this game, the DS version reviewed the worst. Even the Game Boy Advance version got better scores. One of the games I remember most from watching this DVD back in the day was Lost in Blue. The concept of the game was super novel, what with using the DS touchscreen to simulate being stranded on a desert island. It reminded me of the movie Castaway, but I don't know, something about the overall somber tone of this trailer must have evoked something in me for it to have stuck with me after all these years. Why I never ended up playing the game, I don't even know, but it must have been decent since they actually ended up making a lot of sequels. Those darn kids are always getting lost in blue. Actually, Lost in Blue wasn't even the first game in the series. This was just a sequel to a pair of Game Boy Color games called Survival Kids. I love that name. In fact, in Japan, Lost in Blue was just the subtitle. All the games are called Survival Kids over there. And you may think that the Lost in Blue franchise died off in the 2000s, like so many others, but think again, they made a brand new game in 2025 for the Switch 2, and I'm not one to disparage the hard work of a game developer. Wait a minute, yes I am. The game looks like trash. What were they thinking?
Finally, Keith has a friend. But Keith's no fool. He breaks her glasses accidentally, making her helpless. Just the way Keith likes them.
And here we have another movie tie-in, Chronicles of Narnia, and quite frankly, it looks abysmal as one would expect. I really don't like these creepy photos of the actors they use in the game. They look like mugshots. Why did you do it, Lucy? I thought I could trust you. Or worse yet, they look like photos of murder victims like you'd see in an Ace Attorney game. Oh no, not poor Edmund, he died too young, how tragic, he will be missed. Next is Castlevania, which would soon be known as Dawn of Sorrow. Get it? D of S? I loved when DS games did that. Deadly Silence, Dual Strike, Drill Spirits, Dragon Sword, Dragon Song. Oh no! Hey look, the very first thing they show is the single most hated part of the game. I love fighting my way to the end of a super hard boss battle and then losing because the boss's health refilled after I failed to correctly draw a stupid pentagram in time. I find I don't get nearly enough dislikes on my videos, so let's fix that with the introduction of Unpopular Opinion Time! I know this is a beloved game, generally considered a fan favorite, but I can safely say that it is my least favorite game out of all the exploration-focused Castlevanias. To put it simply, I thought it was an ultra-grindy disappointment after its far superior predecessor, Aria of Sorrow. Now, all that said, I thought this trailer was awesome. The music is as great as you'd expect from a Castlevania game, and the graphics are insanely impressive, even to this day. Just straight up timeless. Look at these gruesome enemies, they're so cool. And I remember being so shocked at the amount of pixelated blood and carnage in this trailer. And they were proud of it too. Just look at the final shot in this trailer. And far from the gothic horror of Castlevania, the next trailer is for Yoshi Touch and Go, another gimmicky Yoshi game to follow up Topsy-Turvy. In this game, Yoshi just walks forward automatically while you make platforms and stop enemies using the stylus. It's kind of like in New Super Mario Bros. U, where someone can be the guy who places the platforms on the gamepad while somebody else actually plays the game. Nobody wants to be that guy. I only ever played the demo at a kiosk at the grocery store, and I remember thinking, well, this game sucks. Thankfully, they finally learned their lesson when they eventually made a more traditional Yoshi game with Yoshi's Island DS. But oh wait, nobody liked that game either. When your Nintendo console has a gimmick or a unique method of input, WarioWare will always be there to take advantage of it in every absurd way that the devs can conjure up. Enter the self-explanatory WarioWare Touched. Before this game, we had WarioWare Twisted for the GBA, which utilized gyroscopic rotational gameplay, just like Yoshi Topsy-Turvy. Wow, second time Topsy-Turvy has been brought up in a single video. That's gotta be a record. And after Twisted was the fully motion-controlled Smooth Moves for the Wii. And right in between was this touchscreen-centric entry, which remains one of the best games in the entire franchise. I think Polarium is one of those games where a trailer just isn't doing it justice. From what I can tell, basically you're just tracing over all the dark tiles to flip them over. Is that fun? See, these days there'd be a demo you can download without having to take your DS to a download station. I feel like this game was just a little bit ahead of its time and would have really benefited as a DSiWare title, like how Nintendo did with their Electroplankton, Art Style, and Clubhouse games. In fact, I could have sworn Polarium did get a DSiWare or at least a WiiWare release, but nope. Instead, it got ported backwards to the Game Boy Advance over a year later. I remember the first time I heard the name Nintendogs. I mean, what a perfect title. How could I even resist? Of course, it was one of the first games I got when I finally got a DS later that year. But I would soon learn that the game and the pet sim genre as a whole is not for me. But man, oh man, do I have a lot of nostalgia for the time I spent playing with these stupid little dogs. These little cretins have basically become Nintendo icons, despite just being literal dogs with no unique or distinguishing features. I was more of a Squeak Squad boy myself, but apparently Kirby Canvas Curse was popular enough to warrant getting a sequel for the Wii U like a decade later. It's another game where you don't directly control your character, but rather draw on the screen to move them around. So kinda like Yoshi Touch and Go, but way better looking, more involved, without the auto-scrolling, and better in just about every conceivable way. And finally, it's time for the Nintendo GameCube! Our first GameCube game is Hello Kitty Roller Rescue. And look, she's dressed like Mario! In this game, our titular feline does a Sailor Moon transformation and brings justice back to Sanrio Land, using the power of rollerblading, friendship, and blunt force trauma. This trailer showed no actual gameplay whatsoever, so here's what the game looks like. Incredible. This game is particularly notable for being the inspiration behind this extremely limited Hello Kitty Crystal Xbox console. Ooh, ah. Never did I think I'd have a reason to talk about Zatch Bell on here, specifically the fighting game, Zatch Bell Mamodo Battles. I actually bought this one. This game released only 2 months after Volume 1 of the graphic novel it's based on released in English. Zatch Bell was the first manga, as we called them back in the yesteryears, I ever bought, so naturally, I will always feel immense nostalgia on the rare occasions that this overlooked franchise is brought up. I was obsessed with this property. I bought the graphic novels, I watched the anime, I downloaded the music, I even bought the trading cards that came with the little Mamodo spellbook. It was so awesome, dude! So, yeah, of course I was gonna buy the game. It wasn't very good. But I did get to play as both Ponygon and the invincible Fulgore! So it was worth it in the end. Nobody watching this even knows what I'm talking about. Next game. Under the working title of Viewtiful Joe VFX Battle, we have what is now known as Viewtiful Joe Red Hot Rumble. Like I said earlier, this series just kinda blew up out of nowhere. Only a couple years into its existence as a franchise, and it already got its own fighting game spin-off, in addition to the handheld entry I already talked about, Double Trouble. The games were released just months apart later in 2005, and then, that was it. No more Viewtiful Joe games. Ever. The closest we ever got was The Wonderful 101 in 2013, which was made by much of the same development team and featured similar character designs, but ultimately was a different kind of game entirely. And here it is, One Piece Grand Battle, my very first ever exposure to a franchise I could never have guessed would still be going stronger than ever decades later. The gameplay looks similar to Power Stone, and despite middling review scores at the time, it honestly looks like a pretty fun time. Also, this might just be me being extremely nostalgic as per usual, but I adore the art style. Like, this might be the best looking game I've talked about in this video so far. Bringing back this graphical style, I'd love to play an entire action-adventure game that looks like this. Video game graphics did not need to evolve past the capabilities of this generation of consoles, and honestly, the world would be a better place if they never did. Aw yeah, it's Mega Man X time! These are such great games! Ooh, well, some of them are anyways. Mega Man X Collection features X through X6. Mega Man X7 and X8 are missing, which is understandable since they were still recently released current-gen games, still available on store shelves at the time. Though, unfortunately and questionably, those two games were never on GameCube and wouldn't appear on a Nintendo console until the Mega Man X Legacy Collection released for the Switch. Anyways, while this old collection is missing X7 and X8, it does have the kart racing spin-off Mega Man Battle and Chase, marking the first and only time that game has been available in North America. In fact, this entire collection was a North American exclusive, never releasing in Japan or PAL regions. The rest of the world would have to wait for the Legacy Collection before they'd finally get their hands on an official compilation of these games. Ah, EA games, the mark of the beast. I really have nothing to say about Medal of Honor European Assault, since it looks like the most generic dime-a-dozen 6th-gen first-person shooter ever. Even the graphics are kind of bad for a console game released this late in the generation. Did you know that this series was made by Steven Spielberg? I didn't. I do now. You know the GameCube is dying when the first page of your DVD full of trailers for upcoming games has 4 entire trailers for the Fantastic Four movie tie-in game. First, there's a trailer for The Thing, and you know what? Not gonna lie, this game doesn't look that bad. The graphics are pretty appealing, and I kinda like all the mindless destruction going on. The trailer even features a rap song about The Thing, which ultimately amounts to them saying it's clobbering time over and over. The next trailer is about the Invisible Woman. She also has her own theme song, which is a pop song about being invisible, which, yeah, fitting. Incidentally, the song also repeatedly uses the lyrics, "You Can't See Me," which is also the name of John Cena's studio album from that same year. Next up is the Human Torch. Hey, it's him, the guy from, Not Another Teen Movie. This looks a lot more fun than the Invisible Woman's boring-looking gameplay, which is fitting because, after all, Johnny Storm is the most fantasticest of the 4. This trailer is backed by a rock song that repeats the phrases, "I'm on fire" and "Flame on." Finally, Mr. Fantastic himself gets a trailer. So far, everybody got theme songs either utilizing the characters' catchphrases or singing about their superpowers, but Reed Richards here just gets a song that says "Go Back Again" a bunch of times. What? Go back where? What does that have to do with being a stretchy man? Luffy got a better theme song than this.
He's made a rubber! How did that happen? Yo ho ho, he took a bite of gum gum.
I'm ashamed to admit it, but I have never played a Digimon game, whether it be World, Story, or otherwise. I'm even more ashamed to admit that I wasn't even sure what the Digimon World games were before rewatching this Digimon World 4 trailer. Yeah, I'm a freak deviant that obsesses over Zatch Bell of all things, but I can never get into Digimon. Maybe it's because my intro to the series was that 1999 movie, which was actually just chunks of multiple movies stitched together into a confusing Frankenstein monster, but I'm getting way off track here. Despite this game getting very low scores across the board, this still looks like it could be a pretty fun time. An overhead co-op action platformer? It's not what I expected, and it's much different than the Digimon games we get today, which seem to be more Shin Megami Tensei inspired. I mean, makes sense considering Digimon are quite literally digital devils. Finally, the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's talk about that E3 2005 trailer for The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I watched this trailer 1,000 times. Pre-release, I would comb over every detail, savoring each second of footage, theorizing about every snippet. These days, I still watch the trailer every now and then when I need a shot of those feel-good nostalgic memories to flow through my aging bloodstream. Am I crazy? Quite possibly! The trailer begins with what we now know as the Twilight Realm, revealed here to be mostly grayscale, which I'm sure was very appealing to the vocal group of gamers that were so appalled by Wind Waker's art style that they would bleach their own eyeballs just to not have to see the wretched color again. Personally, I'm glad they completely overhauled the look of the Twilight Realm, making it gloomy, ethereal, striking, unique, adjective, instead of just black and white. Guess all those delays weren't for nothing. Maybe I'm dumb, but I did not realize this was Princess Zelda at the time. Zelda doesn't wear a hooded robe. Where's her dress at? That's me. That's me in 2005. Hey, wanna see something mind-blowing? Link turns into a wolf. What? Okay, so I already knew about that because I read about it and saw the screenshots. Not to mention, it was kinda teased at the end of an earlier trailer, but to actually see Link from The Legend of Zelda transforming into a freaking wolf for the first time, that's the kind of stuff that remains seared into your memories forever. I also vividly remember seeing this weird little creeper boy for the first time, which I'd soon learn is actually a little creeper girl, whose name is Minda, which again I'd soon learn is actually Midna. Well, excuse me for being dumb. Man, that horseback combat has looked so cool from the very first trailer. Don't forget, the very first look we ever got at Link when this game was announced a year prior, he was riding Epona, drawing his sword. The next part, where it shows the Ordon villagers talking with actual mouth movements, I thought for sure this game was gonna have full voice acting, which was still a novelty for Nintendo games. Ultimately, I'm glad it didn't. I'm one of those freaks that usually just prefers to read the text, since no vocal performance will ever be as good as the voices I hear in my head. You know what I mean?
Tell them to like, comment, and subscribe.
Shut up. The thing that really brings this trailer together, that which elevates a mere preview montage for a video game up to a work of art, is the music. The way the music shifts and changes and complements the gameplay shown, it's so good! My favorite part is right here during these epic battle sequences where each sword strike or bomb arrow explosion is synced up to the orchestra, and then it's immediately followed up with a shift to a rendition of Zelda's Lullaby, acting as a reminder that yeah, this is the next Zelda game. Be excited. The music for this trailer was brought to life by a duo of legendary composers, including Michiru Oshima, who worked on properties such as Full Metal Alchemist, the Godzilla franchise, and Ico. So there's your unexpected link between Zelda and Godzilla, and some real obscure trivia to impress your friends with. While she arranged the song for its orchestral recording, it was composed by Nintendo's own legend, Mahito Yokota, the lead composer behind one of the greatest video game soundtracks of all time, Super Mario Galaxy, who was at this point coming fresh off his work on Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. The song for this trailer was so good, they used it again in another equally amazing Twilight Princess trailer, which you'll recognize as the launch trailer that plays when you let the title screen idle in the original GameCube and Wii versions. I was disappointed that no trailer at all plays in the HD version. I mean, how cool would it have been if they remade that trailer for the Wii U release? Anyways, Nintendo knew they had something special on their hands, because at E3 2005, they gave this trailer away to event attendees on actual DS cartridges. So they could watch it over and over and over on the go, which is what I would have done. And of course, they released the trailer again on this very DVD. They wanted everyone to see the masterpiece they were crafting, and I couldn't be gladder for it. Too bad the game wouldn't release for another year and a half. Talk about psychological torture. No wonder I am the way I am. And that concludes my look back on this most special of digital video discs. Twilight Princess aside, it's surprising just how many of these trailers I clearly remember watching for the first time back in 2005. It's hard to overstate just how much of an impact this DVD had on me, as someone who still had internet so slow it could take half a minute just to load up a single web page. The happy ending to that story is that I'd soon move on from AOL dial-up to a more functional internet, and by the end of 2006, I'd get one of those router things, so I can download Mario 64 on my Wii using something called Wi-Fi. Times were indeed a-changin'. Before I go, I'll use this time to regale you with a quick story. So, the E3 2005 Zelda trailer was where the game's final subtitle was revealed, Twilight Princess. Up until then, I'd been calling it the Legend of Zelda tentative title for Nintendo GameCube. Twilight Princess, though, that's a cool title, right? No arguments there? So anyways, fast forward to November 2006, and I'm at the layaway section of Walmart with a group of people in the midst of our 17-hour-long wait for the Nintendo Wii's midnight launch. Sounds like a fun day, right? Getting to hang out with a bunch of like-minded Nintendo and Zelda fans all day, reveling in our shared interests as the dwindling hours push us ever closer to the climactic moment when we can finally get our hands on the products we've been so gleefully anticipating for so very long. But no, Instead, I was the only person my age, and I spent the entire day hanging out with a bunch of scumbag non-gaming scalpers who were fresh off of making a quick profit a couple of days ago with the PS3 launch and figured they'd double down with the Nintendo Wii. Anyways, one of these dudes casually asked me what game I'm gonna get with my Wii. Naturally, I said, Twilight Princess. He replied,
You're buying a princess game?
To which I cleverly responded, with utter silence. And then the kind woman next to me yelled back, That's the name of the new Zelda game, you idiot! Then she bought me popcorn chicken and a Sudoku book because I was hungry and bored and my DS died while I was playing the Danny Phantom demo I got from the DS download station. Anyways, I had a similar situation occur when I was looking for Princess Mononoke at Blockbuster. So, if there's one thing to take away from this overly long video about a DVD full of game trailers I got out of a magazine over 20 years ago, let it be that people are weird. Thank you for watching.
Wow!
Who's your daddy?